right, thank you very much to the wonderful panelists for this seminar, our participants, and the students who have joined us in this conversation. Today, this seminar is focusing on navigating climate change and promoting sustainability in tourism. And we have the experts who are going to speak to us on matters sustainability. But for us as Kenya Tourism Board, we are here to show our commitment to sustainable travel. We want to show our commitment to building a sustainable environment that can allow tourism to thrive. We are known as a destination for our safari. We are known for our beach offering. We are known for our, adventure. And those are basically nature-based tourism. This is a product that we must conserve. This is a product that we must ensure is protected. We need to be able to balance profit and the planet. We need to also ensure that our communities are benefiting from tourism. We need to make sure that we actually preserve this to be enjoyed by the future generation. And you might be wondering, so what is it that you're doing as Kenya Tourism Board? One is to lead such track and start this kind of conversation so that we can listen to experts, get your opinion, get what it is that you are doing so that we can, us and a board, work together to make it happen. We believe that our role as a Kenya Tourism Board is just to create that platform and be the coordinator among the players that are keen to push this sustainability conversation on tourism. We have started the journey and we've agreed to partner with Ecotourism Kenya to run an award that is going to focus on sustainable travel. And to physically do that, we've kicked off One Tourist, One Tree, where we are encouraging every single tourist, both local and international, to always plant a tree whenever they are, traveling and visiting on tourism-related activities. Beyond that, we're asking ourselves, how can we go beyond just a tree? Because sustainability is not about greening. There is more to sustainability. And this is the conversation we want to have this afternoon. We want to ensure we see sustainable practices in our facilities, in our product promotion, and the offering that you are giving out. So for me, this afternoon is to simply say, we are open, we are ready to partner, let's work together, and after this seminar, we'll have a way forward on how to build on this conversation on sustainability. So just to say, we are not the expert, our role is just to give the platform and open the conversation, and we are ready to be the connector and to be the coordinator among the stakeholders on matters sustainability. So asante sana, I'll be listening, I'll be a student, and at the end of the session, we shall all agree to move together as one team that has sustainability agenda in mind. So God bless you and have a great session.
Thank you very much, madam. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. All right, now we move on to the next session, and I'd like to invite Dr. Ruth Kimaiga to come in front, because she's going to moderate this session. And with her will be a couple of speakers. So I'll just invite them to come to the stage. So we have Judy Kefagona, the CEO of Sustainable Travel and Tourism Africa. Please come in front. Mary Njoroge, Finance Manager, Emboo River Camp. Caroline Gadhu, Climate Change Lead, Kenya Wildlife Conservation Association. Lynette Kamonde, Acting Chief Executive Officer of Ecotourism Kenya. Please come in front, and as they do that, ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Before the panelists come here, there's something we want to do. Once upon a time, somebody once said that the earth does not belong to us. Please take care of it, because it was loaned to us by our children. When we say that the earth was loaned to us by our children, this means that we need to leave the earth better than we found it. So each one of us has a role to play to make sure that we leave the earth better than we found it for our future generations. And maybe to borrow from the first words of our national anthem, O God of all creation, bless this our land and nation. That is a prayer that we have always prayed as Kenyans. And for sure, God has blessed this nation. But the question is, how do we ensure that we take care of these wonderful blessings that God has given us so that the future generations can enjoy these benefits or these blessings? There's a lot of legislation that has been enacted. For example, NCAP 3, that is the National Climate Change Adaptation Plan 2023-2027. And whatever we are doing, we are borrowing from it, or we are anchoring our efforts on it, so that we ensure that we develop a climate smart and a climate resilient tourism sector. So the presentation, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to have from Mary Njoroge, who is a carbon accountant. I believe we've heard about accounting, but I don't know how many of us have heard about carbon accounting. Now, this lady, she's going to give us the practical aspect, and which will actually show us that it is possible to achieve a climate smart and a climate resilient tourism sector. So Mary, the floor is yours. Let's give her an applause as she comes.
Thank you. All protocol observed. Good afternoon. How are you feeling? Anxious? Why? I like opening my speeches with questions. And my go-to question is always, when you hear about sustainability, what comes to your mind? I like one student, one CEO, and not our previous speaker, and one lecturer to quickly answer that. We start with the chairman, adjustment from KU. Kindly, if you don't mind, when you hear about sustainability, what comes to your mind? A very short answer, as you're trying to save on time.
To me, sustainability is about utilizing our resources in a prudent manner.
Okay. A student? You have a student right here in front of you, if I'm not wrong, kindly. The one in red.
Hello, everyone. For me, sustainability, it means that you're going to take care of the needs of now without compromising the future.
Perfect. Let's give it to Sham, a very good friend of mine.
Sustainability is, for me, from a social perspective, ensuring that communities are taken care of, and then from an environmental perspective, nature, and looking after our Mother Earth.
Okay, thank you very much. As you've heard, we have different approaches to sustainability. And today, I'm your speaker, Mary Njoroge, Finance Manager, Emboo River Camp, also in charge of sustainability programs at the camp. I also do support with carbon accounting, where we track. We'll be going through, on my speech, we'll be going through some of the things that I do and some of the initiatives that we've taken to ensure that we are resilient as a business, and also we promote sustainability in our operations. So kindly, please put up my presentation so that we can start. As they do that, I can already start by introducing Emboo River Camp. It's a camp in Masai Mara, and I'm sure most of you here, if not all of you, have heard of Emboo. By show of hand, quickly, how many of you know Emboo? Yeah, that's amazing. Almost all of you have heard about Emboo River Camp. And as we speak, technical team, kindly. Emboo was started in 2019 by a Belgian couple, Valerie and Loic. They are very passionate about sustainability. And today we will be covering a very interesting topic, promoting through ecotourism initiative, a case study of Emboo camps, what we've been doing in practical. And Emboo was started by a Belgian couple, as I said, Loic and Valerie. They're very passionate about sustainability. They wanted to take a system thinking approach, whereby instead of running sustainability parallel to your business, which happens quite often, they wanted to integrate sustainability to their core operations, from the smallest to the biggest. So we took this approach whereby we looked at our operations from a small thing as the kitchen materials that we use, that is the paper towel, that most people use, the clingy foil and the aluminum foil, to the big operational needs, such as powering the entire camp, to electric safaris. On each slide, we'll be discussing how we've been able to address this as a camp. And to be able to do that, one of the most questions people ask themselves when they hear about Emboo River, when we say we are carbon neutral or we are a sustainable camp, they try to understand what we mean by that. And to be able to prove to ourselves and be able to track, we do a lot of tracking of our emissions, whereby we have incorporated data collection through a process called greenhouse gases accounting, or what my good friend called carbon accounting. We could go to the next slide kindly. Technical team. When you talk about greenhouse gases, we are referring to these gases that are causing warming in the temperature. And to be able to track that, there are a lot of ways you can be able to determine. For us, we use greenhouse gases protocol. That is the GHG protocol that classifies them to different scopes. We have scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 is mostly what has been produced and emitted by the reporting company, being Emboo, and then we have the indirect, that is upstream and downstream, as scope 2 and scope 3. The biggest headache, if you ask any carbon or GHG accountant, is the scope 3, because it affects the entire supply chain. For us to be able to fully be able to understand our emissions, we also need to understand our suppliers' emissions. How do we do this? By reducing our emissions. We ensure that we are able to match our profitability and our sustainability goals so that we remain profitable as a business and we reduce our carbon footprint. By observing what you're doing, the emissions that you're doing, you improve on efficiency. And as a finance manager, I can really tell you, improving on efficiency really gives you a healthy bottom line, correct? We have finance managers in our midst. And when you improve on efficiency, we are able to promote our profitability at the camp, as well as promote sustainability. Other than tracking our emissions, we are able to determine all the items that we want to be included in our emission accountability. That includes from where we are sourcing, how our guests are getting to Kenya, how we are generating our power, and we have taken different initiatives to be able to ensure that we are reducing this impact. My slides are going a bit slower than my speech. Kindly, technical team. Yes, go back. This is on more definitions of the different scopes that we have, where under the reporting companies is what you own, what most people refer as burn. The second scope is what people refer as buy, because these are the emissions that are as a result of what you're buying. And the scope 3 is mostly to do with supply chain. And this has the most. And this is the most problematic. And for this, I always encourage people, when it comes to sustainability, instead of taking a competitive approach, we need to take a collaborative approach. And I'm very glad that our CEO of KTB has said that they are open to partnerships, because we cannot tackle this issue of climate change, we cannot tackle this issue of sustainable development goals alone. We need to collaborate. We need to partner up with each other as we are trying to reduce the overall emissions. Going forward to our next slides, when it comes to data, you really need to be very accurate about what you're reporting. So you need to ensure that you are first honest to yourself so that you can always collect the accurate data and reliable data, and also be able to analyze it and be able to simplify in the simplest way possible, depending with your consumers. You can use complex data analysis systems or simple data analysis systems so that when you're presenting to people and explaining to them, like for the last quarter, our emissions were at 85% according to our calculations, and our target is to reduce that by 5 to 10%, because you have to also be reasonable about the targets that you're setting. And if you are able to reduce by this much, we'll have reduced our overall emissions to a certain percentage. So you need to be able to communicate this with the most complexity and the simplest way possible to be able to drive the point home, to be able to include everyone in your sustainability approaches and communication. Going forward onto my next slide, these are the stages that I earlier mentioned on how you are able to track your emissions. You need to determine what will be included in your analysis. You should get as much data as possible. When you're starting, you can start by targeting one area. As a business, most businesses that are already up and running, it's a transition. For us, we were starting, during inception, we incorporated sustainability into it. If you are a business that is already operational, you are transitioning. So you can take the approach of targeting one area at a time. You can decide, I want to improve on waste management. So you need to determine everything that has to do with that waste management and what you want to do. Collect as much data as possible. How have you been managing our waste, for example? If you are a tour operator or you have vehicles that you do DMC, you are an agent, you have those vehicles that you use for trips to Mara, you can target other avenues such as your efficiency in terms of logistics, the way you're planning them, and also you collect data based on what you're targeting to reduce emissions on, and then you use conversion factors because you first need to understand where you are. You cannot change something you cannot measure, because in your mind you'll always know that I'm already taking initiative, I recycle. But how much impact is your recycling? How much reduction are you getting from your recycling? And then finally is analyzing the data. After analyzing the data and understanding exactly where you are as a company, you can start setting targets. You set reasonable targets. Sometimes when it comes to sustainability and declarations, people become overambitious. I can stand here and commit to reducing my personal emissions to 0% by next year. Is that possible? Is that logical? No. So you need to be honest, and you also need to set reasonable targets. The idea is not being perfect. It's about progress. As you progress and change your targets, after you have achieved your targets, you can start with reduction by 5%, and then next year you challenge yourself, you go increasing the percentage, and by the time you're reaching 2050, we'll have already gotten to our net zero approach. Going forward, as you know, climate change has really affected most businesses, and it's posing a lot of threats, including financial threats, and nature is angry. And it's really showing us that it's angry. Across the globe, we've seen floods causing huge amounts of losses in terms of dollars, finance, buildings, life. And Kenya was also, people lost their property, people lost life. And being an eco camp, we were not able to escape the furies of nature. On the first picture, you can see where we are located on a river loop. On the other picture is what the flooding of River Talek did to our property. We lost most of our infrastructure because the river decided to create its own path. So our camp, which is a beautiful boutique camp, became an island. Luckily, we did not report any lost lives, thank to God, but we lost our properties. But did this discourage us? No, not at all. It actually gave us more determination to speak about sustainability, to create awareness, and to rebuild with a more resilient camp that you're calling that we are more resilient and will be able to withstand different weather patterns. If we go to our next slides, as we were thinking about what we wanted to create, we wanted to create a camp that would be strong in case of another flooding. We also wanted to ensure that we do not cause much harm to the environment. Our approach has always been, do not tamper with the land permanently to reduce degradation of the earth. So we had to source for materials that we can be able to use that do not alter the land permanently. As you can see, our platform is made from recycled plastics that are durable and strong. They were created by a company called Flip Floppy, which brings us back to collaboration. Because for us to be able to have a resilient camp, we really had to talk to our Scope 3 suppliers from the supply chain to ensure that they are able to provide us with sustainable materials that are strong enough to withstand these weather patterns that are changing. We also got a metal deck that you can mount to the ground without using cement because, as I mentioned, we don't want to alter the land permanently. The tent is strong enough, so in case we experience another flooding, we won't experience as much loss as we did. Beyond that, we try to promote local. All our materials were sourced locally. This also reduces our transportation emissions because you can see we have mkeka from the coastal areas. We have baskets that have actually been made by women in Masai Mara. We have a lot of things as we're trying to promote the economy in Kenya and support local suppliers. Going forward, for our safaris, we've always used electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are a great way of incorporating luxury that is called silence, because noise is also a pollutant. It's not considered when we are doing the GHG gases emissions, but when you are in a peaceful environment, it always gives you that peace of mind. So when you're using electric safaris, you do not disturb the animals, and then it has reduced our emissions by 85% as compared to traditional Land Cruisers that use diesel. By using these electric safari vehicles, we are able to go as close to batteries after their lifespan. Currently, they go up to 13 years, and we are able to recycle them. The other thing that we have incorporated is waste management. We take the approach of reduce, reuse, and repurpose throughout. We also use farm-to-fork approach by having hydroponic gardens. Apart from that, we engage the community and the employees. Employee engagement is very important when it comes to sustainability. The more you engage your employees, the better the impact, because they need to really understand what you're doing to be able to implement. We use biogas for our food, where we have a closed loop system. We use the recycled food. Any food waste that you've used, we use it to generate the biogas that is used to cook the food as well. We also like to promote what I like saying as collaboration. We've collaborated with different organizations in creating awareness. I'm happy Judy is here and she's part of the panel. She always welcomes us whenever she has an event to create awareness. I would like to kindly request the team to go to the slide where we have the climate action plan. We have so many business here, and you may be asking yourself, where should I start when it comes to creating a climate action plan? STTA has created the proper tool for you to be able to create your own business climate action plan. This toolkit is very simplified, it's easy to understand, and it's available. Judy, one of the panelists, you can engage her after this to know how you can be able to get it. And as part of our initiative and ways of helping other businesses transform, we were able to work on a plan or a project with the Belgium Embassy. The video will be coming up shortly, where we help them reduce their emissions by incorporating sustainable practices into their core operations. It's a very short video. We'll see some of the parts, and then because of time, we won't finish watching it. The link will be available. It will be shared after this event. Technical team, kindly share the video.
Wow, we thought it was a challenge. It's hard to find what we call a turnkey solution.
Idea. Seems like we're experiencing technical issues, but to summarize it, these are the initiatives that we took with them. We helped them create a hydroponic garden for them to have a farm-to-fork plan, and this also reduces the number of trips that you need to go get fresh herbs and vegetables, because that is a very key area, like in tourism industry. You guys like to eat salads. It's up.
Wow, we thought it was a challenge. It's hard to find what we call a turnkey solution, somebody who can provide all the solutions at once. When we thought of this, we said, how are we going to assemble a team?
The Emboo Innovation Hub is there to inspire other businesses to transform their operations into a net zero state. For us, there's a couple guiding principles. It's about simplicity, it's about tech innovation, it's about finding nature-based solutions.
We had to start doing an audit of our energy consumption, both in terms of electricity and gas, our water consumption, the possibility of having our own vegetable garden, and what that would do for us. More or less at that time, the Belgian government had decided that they would run a program which was making its own public buildings sustainable. Initially, of course, that project was for the federal government buildings in Brussels, but the foreign ministry said, well, why don't we do this with our embassies abroad? The big advantage that we have here in Nairobi is the climate. You have 350 days of sun here. There's sufficient rainfall, so we have a lot of water. It's the perfect kind of climate for this kind of project. Lots of embassies have put down solar panels, a number have installed biodigesters for gas, etc., but nobody has done the whole package yet. This is the first Belgian embassy worldwide to be completely net zero.
We have installed solar panels on both buildings, both the Chancery and the ambassador's residence that are on the same plot. Both of them are just full-on solar power, no generator, fully independent of the grid. Then we have a solar carport, which is charging electric vehicles under that solar carport with EV chargers. Then we're using biogas and biodigesters for the kitchen, and all of that gas is generated through vegetable and fruit waste. And then we've got a recirculation fountain, which acts as a buffer zone for all of the irrigation. We do water filtration of all of the used water through sequencing batch reactors, plus a nature-based solution with a lagoon. And all of that water that has been filtered will go back into circulation in the irrigation. Then we've got vertical gardens that are creating almost all of the fresh produce, so vegetables and fruits, and we've got big rainwater harvesting tanks.
little efforts have been made to bring them back into the fold. And I hesitate a lot to use the term community benefit. I prefer to use the term community integration, because they need to be reintegrated back into what was originally their assets. So for us, for communities to be reintegrated back into tourism, we need to address issues of ownership and access. Who owns the resource? I know that wildlife, for example, is a national resource and a national treasure for all of us, but who lives with this wildlife on a day-to-day basis? How do we reintegrate the communities back so that they can feel a sense of ownership? And in the last 15 years, I think we have made tremendous progress with the conservancy models. Because what the conservancy model did, it gave the community reassurance. It gave them the reassurance that they can claim ownership of this resource, they can utilize this resource responsibly, and they can benefit from it. So for us to reintegrate communities, issues of ownership have got to be addressed. Issues of access to resources have got to be addressed. We still have challenges of access to resources in our coastal areas. The models that are working for the wildlife economy are not working for our coastal areas. We see a lot of isolation. I love to tell this story, and I may just tell it and I will stop my submission at that point. In one of my many engagements with the boat operators in the coast of Kenya, doing a training down in Shimoni last year with boat operators on how to be responsible boat operators, a middle-aged man, maybe in his early 50s, stood up and said, the first time I was engaged in a tourism discussion and trained was almost 20 years ago. And I had trained 20 years ago when I was at Ecotourism Kenya, and he could remember. But here is the sad part of the story. This is what he told me. I inherited this business from my father. And 50 years later, I still feel like I'm not part of the tourism industry. I have to hustle every morning to try and beg and convince tourists to come onto my boat. The hotel will tell them that my boat is insecure, that I don't have insurance, that I don't have this, that I'm not qualified, I am not trained because I have not gotten the level of certification that is required. And he asked me, if my father went through this, and he's a bona fide resident of Shimoni, 50 years down the line, I'm still facing the same rejection in the industry that is the mainstay of Shimoni. Where do they want us to go? What do they want us to do? So that's why I'm talking about issues of access, issues of ownership, and here I'm talking about issues of enablement and capacity building. Who is providing them with the opportunity to be trained to get that captain license that enables them to get an insurance? Because they cannot get it if they are not qualified. And the courses are very expensive. But these same hotels to take their guests to the deep sea. But when they are going to the guests directly, the same hotel says they are not qualified, they are not licensed. So we need enablement, and the enablement will start at the level of policies. You know, we all say that the fish rots from the head. Even when the communities are suffering down here, it starts at policy level. If the policies are not working, it doesn't matter what ecosystem players are doing at the bottom to empower these people. We must have enabling policies for communities to feel integrated in tourism.
Wow, amazing. So the policymakers, I included, we've had. Thank you very much, Judy. And by the way, Judy will also maybe tell us about her initiative of carry your own bottle. Before we leave, yes, carry your own bottle. Maybe to go back to Ecotourism Kenya. Lynette, do you have any maybe success stories about, or case studies, where we've had ecotourism projects that have been able to balance environmental conservation and visitor experience. Maybe you can tell us more about them, if there are any.
Thank you so much for that question. So for Ecotourism Kenya, we start with our certification program, that is the eco-rating certification. And what we do, like for early introduction that I said, we support the facility, that is accommodation facilities, on matter sustainable tourism, and also to support them on how they can be responsible in their operation. And another thing that we do, we also have partnership with Travel Life for tour operators, where we also support the tour operators in terms of coaching, where we do coaching, we do auditing, and also we audit them and give them a certification based on that. And then another project that we do have is community engagement and also initiative. And recently we conducted a capacity building in Kakamega County, where we engaged around 22 CBTOs just to train them on matters leadership, because that's how now communities are coming in, because most of the challenges come in when the leadership, when they are not empowered on how best they can be able to tap into the tourism activities or also initiatives. And another thing is also through now the certification, like Emboo River highlighted, because I'm glad they're also members of Ecotourism Kenya and also certified properties, in terms of also encourage them to use the renewable energy, in terms of even transportation, electric vehicles, because I'm glad the 42 eco-rated facilities that were highlighted, all of them, most of them, they use electric travel in their travels, and also elimination of the single-use plastic. Those are some of the success stories, actually, that we can be able to tell.
Wow, amazing. Thank you very much, Lynette. Maybe to come to Mary, you have presented, you had a wonderful presentation on how you have implemented sustainability in your facility. Are there any challenges that you experienced as you are walking through this journey? Maybe you can tell us so that the members can know what challenges are they likely to face.
Okay. The challenges when it comes to sustainability, there are so many. Some of the challenges that we have actually experienced are, number one, high cost of transitioning or incorporating sustainability. It's not cheap to have a full grid of solar panels. Currently, we have a 140 square foot of solar panels. You can imagine how much we spent on that, plus the backup, which are lithium-ion batteries. They are also quite expensive. In addition to that, to be able to track our emission, as I mentioned, it includes scope 3. You need to engage your suppliers. So we also get resistance from suppliers, especially the local ones. They have their way of doing things. And now you're coming to them and telling them, we would like to also reduce our emissions through our supply chain. And these are some of the things that you're trying to educate you on how to become sustainable as a supplier. And then they tend to resist. And then you have also experienced changing terms in terms of unstable tax regime in Kenya. We saw like where we had the finance bill that was rejected. The previous years, they had created incentives whereby they were promoting e-mobility. For 2024, they were withdrawing these incentives. That meant that any other additional vehicle we wanted to add to our fleet would have come at an extra cost. These are some of the challenges that we faced. There's also that barrier where people are resisting or they're trying to intentionally or unintentionally greenwashing. You engage a supplier, they share data with you that they are sustainable, but they are just doing it for the face, but they are not really sustainable. And also the other being lack of collaborations. People are not willing to collaborate. We should be able to take a collaborative approach, but people are trying to use sustainability as just branding, which is very wrong, because as we are using it for just branding and not actually reducing our emissions and being sustainable in terms of how we engage with our community, empowering the community, it means that we are lying to ourselves and we're not actually taking any steps towards the sustainability goals.
Wow, thank you very much, Mary. Over to you, Caroline. Our tourism sector is highly nature-based. In fact, 80% of our sector depends on natural resources. That is flora and fauna. Which responsible practices can we implement to protect the wildlife and natural resources?
Thank you for that question. For responsible practices, they can range from very minor things that we do to major issues. A minor one would be, for example, adhering to ethical practices when we are doing our tourism. In most places where you visit the wildlife, you'll see caution of not feeding the wildlife, maintaining a stipulated distance. Yeah, so that is one of the issues that can help us in terms of minimizing the disturbances, especially for the wildlife. The other thing would be how our investors are also investing in the spaces where the wildlife is also conserved and also the natural resources. How do we put up our facilities? A case in example is how Masai Mara does their facilities. For example, one bed takes up to 350 acres of land. So if there are 1,000 acres of land, it means that you divide that by 350 acres so that you determine the number of beds that will be put up. And that also translates to the number of facilities that will be established. And this is ideally to minimize on any environmental impacts, to minimize on the disruptions that would, the tourism would lead to the wildlife and also the natural resources. Another thing is when our tourists are going around, local and international, how do we do our tourism? Do we engage people who understand the ecosystem, people who understand the animals, so that, again, we minimize on these disruptions? I also mentioned about small things, like ensuring that we are not, driving off-road, because, again, we are trying to conserve our natural resources. So those small and big practices would help us in terms of continuously managing our natural resources, which include the wildlife and also the vegetation that we are, trying to protect. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Caroline. Because of time, maybe we can just have one question to Judy. Kindly tell us about Carry Your Own Bottle initiative. It's an amazing initiative, and what role does it play in protecting the environment?
Thank you. I have been bringing my own bottle since 2016. Even when I travel and I go on flights, I take my own bottle and I tell the airline, the crew, and I tell them, fill up my bottle with water and give it to me, because I am trying to manage my own impact. You made reference to the hummingbird story. This bottle has been my little thing for the environment for a long time. There are big things that we do, but this is my little thing. If I was to count the number of bottles I will use in every conference that I have attended, in many places that I have been to, they would probably be into tens of thousands since 2016. And that is the impact of each one of us taking responsibility with Bring Your Own Bottle. I am happy that I have got in this room STTA change makers. I run a program with universities, 17 universities involved in the STTA Young Change Makers program, where we are actually trying to empower young professionals to go out as change makers for the future tourism that we want. As an organization mission to model a sustainable future for Africa's tourism. You cannot model the future of Africa's tourism without the youth, because Africa's population is youthful. I think we are told by 2050 will be more than 65% youthful. Is it even 2030? How do we then move forward with an industry like this without the youth? And so, working together with the youth on this initiative, and all of them who are part of this initiative will reject plastic bottles as much as they can. Wherever they go, we say reject, okay? So even now, when I was coming to sit up here, I deliberately chose this seat because there was no plastic bottle here, because I'm rejecting single-use plastic. It's that personal. And if each one of us in the tourism industry would take on something simple that will make a difference, if each one of us will just embrace something, if it's a planting of trees, if it is not using plastic bottles, we will make a big difference in the tourism industry. So this, like Wangare Maathai said, is one of my little things to give back to the environment. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Judy. And because of time, we'll take just, 4 questions for each of the panelists. Allow me to stand because in front of you is the Kenya Association of Women in Tourism. Hey, appreciate them. And we cannot leave the stage without us telling you about that story of the hummingbird. It's a very short illustration. Once upon a time, there's a forest that caught fire, a huge forest. And in this forest, there used to live a lot of animals, so many animals. When this forest caught fire, the animals started running away from the forest, and they congregated around a stream that was near the forest. So when the animals congregated near the stream, one little bird looked at the forest that was being consumed and asked herself, what can I do? So she decided to go to the stream, pick a drop of water, and come and drop it on the fire, on the forest that was being consumed. She kept on going as fast as she could. Then these other animals were watching her, and they asked her, what do you think you're doing? And some of these animals that were asking were those huge ones like the elephant that has a huge trunk. It could go and scoop a substantial amount of water and sprinkle it on the burning forest. So this little bird replied, I am doing the best I can. So please, ladies and gentlemen, we have that responsibility to do the best we can. It doesn't matter how small it is. So we invite just 4 questions, then we can exit the stage. We can have the mic go round. Yes, we have 1 question from there.
Thank you very much, Dr. for giving us an opportunity to ask questions or give comments. I'll give a comment on what Judy mentioned about the beach operators or the boat operators in Shimoni and Wasini. As much as you have an issue with the policy, I think there is something on the ground that can be done on implementation in the current policy. I'm saying this because the beach operators, and especially the boat operators in Kisiti Mpunguti, we have actually engaged them as a county in training them. I know 150 have been trained at Bandari College. They have the coxswain certificates, okay? We have also engaged the beach operators in Diandi, and we've trained around 500. I know there are still more to be trained. So the situation is not as bad as seems to appear. The bigger issue, I think, is there are so many conflicting regulations that these particular niche or other stakeholders need to adhere to. One, they must get a license, I think, from TRA. They may also have to get a license from the county government, a single business permit, to get from the fisheries department. So I think there's so much bureaucracies in their operation that it would be better if we only have a single license to cover all of that. That is 1. 2, the issue of also enforcement of the laws that are already in place is also an issue. There are so many of them encourage the genuine ones. So the one who does not have a license means he can actually give a very low price because he has very minimal operational cost vis-a-vis the one who has all the licenses. So I think we need to work more on the enforcement and, of course, those bits of policy issues. Thank you. My name is Paul Musila. I work for the County Government of Kwale, as the director in charge of tourism promotions. Asante.
Thank you, Mr. Musila. Those are policy and legislation issues, and the regulator has heard you. Yes, we have the next question.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Zablon, founder Tawanda Tours and Travel. So my question is in regards to how can we connect the institutions of learning and the industry? Because myself, I graduated from the School of Tourism like in 2013. I can tell you for free, it's been very tough to get a job in this industry. And as the year goes by, we keep on churning out thousands and thousands of students from the university into the market. How will we blend the two so that when the students finally graduate, they have a starting point in terms of what they want to do and a good environment in which also they can also be innovative? Because what I learned is less than 10% what is outside here. So blending the institutional learning and training and the current job market has been a very, very big problem, so that we help these students to have a soft landing point when they finally graduate.
Thank you.
Yes, maybe we can have 2 more questions.
We take these 3 quickly.
Just 2 more, please,
Okay.
because of time. The rest we can network, as they say. Your network is your net worth.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rafael Omondi. So the question, you have mentioned that this is to you, Ruth. You have mentioned that TRA will be conducting eco rating very soon. So maybe if you will make us understand, ecotourism Kenya is already doing the same thing. How different will yours be from what EK is already doing? And also more or less, I could say that you are both membership organizations, because for somebody to be accredited in the TRA, of course, there are some steps that have to be taken. So other than for the people that you have accredited, and maybe for those that have taken your licenses, are there any other people that are also targeting with this eco rating? Thank you.
John, kindly.
Hello once again. My name is Teresa Mombi Motinda. I'm a student at Kenyatta University. So, my first question, I live near the Savo West National Park and the Cholo Hills. So, when it comes to those policies that are supposed to be implemented for the community to get the benefits that they are supposed to get, because when I was growing up, there was this lady from KWS, her name was Malenya. So she did the insemination thing where she would come to schools and we were educated about conservation. And for a while, people stopped carving, because at our place, a lot of carving. And they go there to cut trees and farm, what is it called? Watu wanatafunanga ya green, wanatafuna kama ng'ombe. Anyway, that. So they will go to the hills, they find land huko ndani, and wanapanda mira and mogoka. Because at the end of the day, they need income. They need to feed their families. You can come with you tell us, yes, let's stop going to the hills. That's where everything, you tell them all the benefits of that resource. But you still have to come with a way for them to live and get income. And of course, if you say people need the resources, I am also educated and I live near the Cholo Hills. If you teach me about what I'm supposed to get tell me those policies. Nitafuta watu to. We want the policies to be implemented. We can fight for it, Ama. Yeah? We can fight and make sure those policies are implemented. We can start to benefit if the community wataona enyewe tuna benefit from living near the Savo, we will not harm the resource, sindio? Yeah, and not all communities hazina mtu mwenye amesoma. Yeah? And also, another question, because we teach people, I've heard most of it is about teaching people, giving them the certificates. What about my new course I'm doing is strategic management, and it doesn't stop at planning and communication. There is also following up, monitoring, reviewing, seeing if it's actually been done, if they are actually following up what you have taught them, coming back to see, okay, tuliwafunza hii, what are they doing? Is there anything? Are they acting on the sustainability? Another question.
Please let us be brief so that we can.
Yeah, this is the last
time
one.
To network.
I am sorry, but I've been having this bottle here waiting for the one who is the owner and he has not come. I like your initiative, carry your own bottle. But sometimes when you have a voice and people can listen to you, you just don't act wewe peke yako. You can also have the rest, when you wako hapo na wanaweza kusikiza, they act on it. Kiitiwa inaitwaje a conference, you just tell them, please, let's not use plastic water bottles. Hata mimi imenibother sana the whole time. Unapata ninasikiza but sisikizi kwa sababu hiyo chupa inaniuma. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Judy, I think I'll hand over that question to you briefly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me start by, Paul, thank you for responding to the question of the boat operators. But sometimes we just need to have effective policies. And I'll give the example of what happened with Gambian operators, beach operators, through a World Bank project that solved all these issues. Because you may want people to comply, you may want the boat operators to comply, but they don't have the capacity to pay for all those licenses that you're asking them for. So one of the best models that I've seen for integration of beach business people in tourism is a World Bank project in Gambia, where the government, through support from World Bank, changed their policies drastically and made two very significant changes for integration. Number one, the lodges, the hotels in the beach were not allowed to pick visitors from the airport. So they were cutting down the harms of all-inclusive packages, okay? You arrive, the hotel picks you, it keeps you in the hotel, it feeds you all the time, it takes you back to the airport, and you're gone. And the local community does not even have a trickle of the scent of that visitor. So what they did in that project, the government passed a regulation to the hotels. You will not do airport transfers. Airport transfers will be done by these operators. They will be organized, and the World Bank project bought them taxis, vans, transfer vans. And they had a particular color, and they were the only ones that could transport visitors from the airport and the beach hotels. That is an integration model. The next thing that they did was that they built them, they organized them, and built them like small offices, several of them, along the routes going to the beach hotels. And in these places, they packaged experiences outside the hotel. So the hotels were not allowed to offer experiences outside the hotel. So they could not take their visitors off the hotel and take them somewhere for shopping or into the community. This had to be done by those who used to be beach operators. Effective integration, all of them got their licenses. They needed to be licensed to be part of that program, to run those booths. They needed to go to school to know how to drive and get licenses. So sometimes it's a two-way traffic. And just like my little friend here has said, you can give people knowledge and train them, but you're not enabling them. You're not enabling them. So we need enabling policies, like those drastic measures that transformed the beach operations in Gambia. It is a very, very good World Bank model that works until today. I will try to respond to the gentleman who talked about learning institutions and how they're linked to the market demands. The program that we run, the SCTA Young Change Makers, is trying to do exactly that. In our program, we also demystify what a tourism job is. And students who have gone through that program are able to work in different segments. They're working in the climate space, they're becoming sustainability managers, they are sustainability assessors, they leave universities and they're tourism researchers, they are travel writers because we also train them how to write, how to be travel writers in that program. There are various places, we call them the safe working spaces or the safe spaces for students to learn. It's an alternative extension learning program to empower them. When they go out to the market, they're able to do so many different things. You wanted me to respond to her question as well? Or I can give it to somebody else?
Okay, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. Because of time, I think... Yes, you can. Yes, Judy, you can.
Okay. I think she was talking about how do communities that live around protected areas can be empowered so that they're not sneaking in to plant mirai in the protected areas. When people do that, I always say that as policymakers, we should not look at that as crime exclusively. We should look at it as a system of communication. They're actually telling you, we have been left out and we are trying to bring our seat to the table. And the best way we know is to sneak in and plant Muguka in there because there is no space in the table for us. If we open spaces in the table for them, by bringing down some of the barriers that stop communities from being integrated into conservation. I will give you an example of a tourism school in the Mara that was a game changer for the Maasais. I don't know how many of you have heard about the former Koyaki Guiding School. Today it's called the Mara Wildlife and Tourism College. I was in Mara when European Union built the Koyaki Guiding School. And when the Koyaki Guiding School was built, I was working in the Mara, I was part of the board. What we did is we said, forget the tourism standards for training a guide, we are going to lower the bar. Because somebody had to enter, it was an incentive for the Maasais to start becoming guides in their landscape. For the longest time ever, you were in the Mara, and there was never one. When I started working in the Mara, there was countable, maybe I would count 5, of Maasai people who were in guides in camps and lodges. Enter the Koyaki Guiding School, a game changer, a little enabling investment that allowed those young men and women who had been hanging around at home and doing nothing to come into an environment where they would be trained. They even came with their shukas. That is how the guiding in the Mara today is transformed and the shuka has been accepted. They went to class in their shukas. They learned in the simplest environment. It was allowed to drop out, whether you had gone to class 8, you would come and learn guiding. And that is how we changed the whole story from, these people are not guides. These people are hosts. They are hosting on their land. They have the indigenous knowledge of place. They are best placed to tell the story of the Mara and its wildlife and how it relates to the people. Today, almost every camp in the Mara is 70% or 80% Maasai guides because of that school. And it was such a basic school, but it was an enabler. So we can write policies, but we can also go and do impactful things that will make a difference. Because policies are sometimes difficult to break down until the time they'll be implemented. From the time they're enacted, it will take another 20 years before it creates impact. But things that can be done that will make a difference. So what that community needs is an enabler project, like the guiding school that integrated the Maasai. Out of the guiding school, 20 years later, we have community conservancies in the Mara. Because why? They started saying, I remember going to the first graduation when the first female guide graduated from Koyaki Guiding School, and the mother saying that, you know what? My daughter tells me that now she is not the cow that will die during drought. She is the cow that will live forever because she will give back to her community and her family. And for that, the mother said, from today henceforth, I respect wildlife, because our lives have been changed. So it is possible to have enabler programs that will give opportunities for the communities to benefit from the resources that they have.
Thank you very much, Judy. Maybe very quickly to respond to the issue of eco-rating and eco-certification. Yes, the regulator is coming up with those regulations, and we are doing it through a project that we want to decarbonize the tourism sector. Ecotourism Kenya will sit in that committee, so it's a collaborative effort. And regulations are better when they are government-led. It is easier to implement as government as compared to the private sector, because of the government has the enforcement mechanism. Just to finish, ladies and gentlemen, the issue of linking academia and the industry, to affirm this, I wish to hand it over to our CEO, Madam June Chepkemei.
All right, thank you. I know time is much spent and we still have papers to present, so I'll just limit the response to say we noticed the gap as the Kenya Tourism Board, and that's why for the first time in 14 years since we started having MKT, we've incorporated academia. That's why we are here. But we are not stopping at a conversation, we are not stopping at conference, but we've already started engaging the industry, and we got feedback from JW Marriott, the new facility in town, and they told us that they are beginning to see gaps between the students that they're hiring directly to their facilities and what it is that they really need in the industry. And we agreed to come up with a program that will begin to admit students together with the institutions of learning, and they are allowed to work as they learn. So there'll be a curriculum, and we are putting together that program and piloting with JW Marriott to see how, as you join your first year, whether you're doing a certificate or a diploma, whatever it is that you are training on, whether you are a chef, whether you are whichever else aspect of tourism, you get onboarded, and that process is accepted by the college that you'll graduate in, together with the hotel or the industry player that needs your service. And as you continue learning, there'll be time that you spend mostly with the industry practically, and time that you'll spend theoretically. By the time you are graduating, first, you are very resourceful in terms of market readiness, and secondly, you potentially have an opportunity to be hired by that particular institution that has supported the training. This will ensure that we churn out graduates who are ready, market ready, not those that the industry will have to now train afresh for them to be able to meet the needs of the industry. So we are taking upon that challenge, but also we are working together. Now we have champions. Our sustainability champion will work together to come up with programs such as the one that you mentioned happened in Mara, and what else can we do so that we can begin to be part of the solution to unemployment in this country.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hand over the program to Alex Tonoi.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Very interesting topics, really insightful. But before we leave, we'd like to appreciate you with a token of appreciation, and I'd like to invite the CEO to come in front and join us as we take a group photo as well. So ladies, welcome you in front. Gents, next year we will do ours, don't worry. Men in tourism, that I've promised I'll champion that.
Please mention that we will cooperate.
Yeah.
Tumnyang'anye quietly.
We've already started the incorporation, so Mr. Gitonga has joined the Men in Tourism Association. We've started registration, so you can see me after this at the back.
There's an event that I want just to invite.
Okay. And as we take photos, let's give them a round of applause, please. And on the screen, we will have a QR code for the programs that will be running, for the papers that have been submitted. Please download them and have a look at them. And as we prepare for the next speaker, who's Mr. Gitonga, there's just one word here.
Thank you so much for this, because I'm expecting a wrap-up. But I just wanted to retaliate on what Madam June said earlier. We have an EcoRes Award that is coming up on 17th of October. That's to celebrate their outstanding contribution in the tourism sector. And currently, the theme is realizing sustainable development goals through sustainable tourism. And we'd like to invite all of you. You can visit our website where we can be able to do the registration, and then you can be able to be guided. Thank you so much.
A quick one. Thank you, ladies. I'll only remain with her. There's a question targeted at students. How do you use technology, or how do you incorporate the technology in your studies? Anybody who can answer that? A student who can respond to that? A student who can respond to how you are incorporating technology in your studies? Yes? Either pass the mic or I know you are faster than the mic, so keep coming. You meet the mic on the way. Alex? Your name, the institution, and what you're studying.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. Sorry. My name is Christian Chege. I'm from the University of Emboo, pursuing tourism management. So we use technology using to work out things like planning our tours and arranging the same, and doing foreign exchange through the e-banking. And we can also learn on various ways on how to improve on various issues like cybercrime by playing roles and many others.
All right, thank you. What do you say to him? Just stand there.
Okay, as a personal initiative, whenever I'm called to speak, I always take it a responsibility to mentor one student. Apart from being an Emboo finance manager, I also do have other companies that ask for my help when recruiting. So I'll take him personally as my mentee, and then we'll have feedback after some few months or years so that he can grow in the industry.
Opportunity meets preparedness. Hello, students. Hello, we've learned something, eh? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And we now move on to the next presentation. And this presentation will be done by Mr. Gitonga, who's the acting CEO for Tourism Research Institute. And this is on findings on climate change, research that was recently done. So ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together as we invite him up onto the stage.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon. Are we so tired? I know it's quite a warm afternoon. Maybe, Alex, you need to lead us in a bit of stretch work so that we can remain awake. Alex, lead us in that.
Okay. Let's stand up for a minute. Stand up. Let's raise our hands all the way up. Raise them as high as you can. Touch the sky. Then now bend forward a little bit. To the side, stand, and then to the other side. Turn around. And now you can sit down. We should have actually had some music to that, but don't worry, next time. Because interest of time, we'll commence the next seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. I know time is really not on our side, so I'll try to stick to the time that I've been given. Basically, we are here as TRI to present findings of a study which we concluded recently on climate change and sustainability. This study came about because of the commitments that Kenya made on climate change and sustainability measures in the system of the COP, UNFCCC climate change conference. So we were tasked to do a study that will give us first as a basis where are we broadly as a sector. So it was quite a broad study, and I'm happy that quite a number of you are involved in the study as respondents, as key informants, giving us data and allowing us to collect data in your establishments. And today we'll be giving you the key findings, after which now, luckily, we just concluded it just when this event was about to start. So it became a very opportune moment to come and share the key findings. Then in the next couple of weeks, we'll have published the detailed document that we'll be able to circulate to you for your reading and your response. So we could go to the next slide. Yeah, that was it was quite a broad study because it needed to give us a basis of where we are in terms of climate change response and sustainability. We could go to the next slide. Just to look at the concept on which it was based, we were guided by the conceptual framework given by Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which provided the global benchmarks against which climate change adaptation and mitigation is implemented by tourism globally, which also classified tourism industries and activities, the same system that we use for economic accounting for tourism, the tourism satellite account. Then we use the same system to link up to sustainability accounting. Then you also have the system of, that now leads us to the system of environmental economic accounting. Then we also have the issue of GSTC also establishes the environmental performance measures for tourism and to identify the STPs to be adopted by the enterprises. Then we also have the issue of stakeholder engagement and awareness creation on that area. Then to look at the barriers, like we talked about the various barriers that we have to attaining climate change sustainability and response to climate change. So let's go to the next slide. This is just how the survey was conducted in terms of number of enterprises surveyed. Costs, of course, took 27.4%. Nairobi and the Nairobi metropolis area, Nairobi and its environments took 44.1%. Central Kenya 8.2%. Northern Kenya 1.1%. Masai Mara area 0.4%. And the Rift Valley area 6.3%, Western 9.5%. This is largely based on the number of enterprises registered by TRA as operators in the sector. That is what led us in terms of apportioning the sample sizes in each area. The next slide. So we go to now to look at the key findings that we found. So we could go to the next slide. This is in terms of climate change awareness, distribution between male and female. You can see the figures there. Slide. Now, in terms of awareness on the climate change biophysical events, it was very critical to understand how well does our sector understand this area of climate change. And we found that the most common understood issues are the issues of intense rainfall, like the floods we had earlier in the year, and the droughts, the rising temperatures, which are leading to people change their way of operating, the floods, of course, and the emergence of diseases, then the loss of wildlife. You can see all those other areas relating to emergence of new species, a lot of tree species. Those were the key areas that, in terms of understanding the impacts of climate change, those are the key areas that most people in the sector were able to talk about. We could go to the next slide. Then in terms of actual effects of the climate change on tourism enterprises, you could see again the issue of change of rainfall seasons, because our sector is very much affected by our weather patterns. So you could see the issue of change of rainfall season is an issue. Extremely low temperature at times where we never used to have such weather conditions. Prolonged droughts, of course, they affect us on our tourism resources, and the warmer temperatures, those are the key areas. But you could see a range of many other areas that we seem to be concerned about as a sector. The next slide. If I'm moving too fast because of time, this presentation will be shared after this for deeper analysis. And again, as I said, soon we'll have published the detailed report for dissemination to stakeholders. Then there is the issue of significance of climate change on tourism operations. As we were told earlier, it is one of the key concerns we had earlier, even from the earlier speakers, is the cost implication of the cost of operations. So you can see even in this study, it came up as a concern, increase in operational cost, loss of income opportunities, both for communities and for bigger investors, change of travel patterns by our domestic and international tourists, change in seasonality of our tourism sector, and interruption of business. So those were key concerns that came out of what the study is telling us. The next slide. Okay. What are those sustainability practices that are being implemented by our tourism enterprises? We saw a lot of emphasis on social sustainability. I think a lot of awareness has been created in the area of social sustainability and inclusivity. So we saw a lot of practices also towards economic sustainability and also environmental sustainability. But you can see it seems like now it's more emphasis on social sustainability. The next slide. Yeah, this is just what we saw in terms of diversity of sustainable practices. You could see a wide range of diversity of the various interventions people are making, except there was a unique case where one county where we saw that there was not much diversity in terms of adoption of the sustainable practices. So people need to be more innovative in terms of the sustainability practices they're adopting. The next slide. The specific sustainability practices across the various counties, you could see, I think the issue of solar energy has been around with us, is really picked up because it has, then the issue of energy saving appliances, because this has direct impact on the cost of operation. So it seems like we are very sensitive where our sustainability practices also lead to cost savings. I think we are keen when it leads to that. Good thing, the issue of electric vehicles is also picking up, which is good for our sector, in line with the commitment we had said. And those are the sustainable transport, and those are the issues that we've seen up. The next slide. Next one, best practices. So then we went by category of enterprises. As per the regulatory regulations, you know, we have Class A enterprises with mainly accommodation, Class B, Class C, and all that. So when you looked at Class A, that is the accommodation facilities, you could see a lot of their efforts, a lot of what they are adopting. It has to do with the employee and guest training, which is a good thing, product and market diversification activities, modifying of buildings to fit to be more sustainable and energy efficient. The issue of impact management planning, they are starting to pick up tourism information, so you can see the hotel area is picking on that. When you go to Class B enterprises, the issue of product and market diversification. And for sure, I think in the last couple of years, we have seen a lot of innovation in our eateries, in our restaurants around the city and other places. The issue of guest and employee training is also key, in impact management planning and those others, including, to some extent, special insurance and redirecting guests, water collection, and all those. The next slide, please. Yes, this is again the issue of mitigation. In terms of mitigation, responding to mitigate climate change effects. The issue of tree planting is picking up, and the area of, when you compare Class A, Class B, and C, you can see the issue of tree planting and engaging in other conservation initiatives is being picked up, particularly by the Class A and Class E enterprises. The next one. Then the extent of sustainability practices, issues to do with legal compliance, policies for staff, because they also relate to social sustainability, efficient energy appliances, efficient water management, minimizing paper-based marketing, and we can also see people picking up that. And all those other measures are being picked up, particularly by Class A enterprises. We can see the same matters also being prioritized by the Class B enterprises, that's the restaurants. The next slide. Then the other one is still on the same in terms of Class C enterprises, to operators. That's where you see the issue of fleet management to ensure efficiency, legal compliance and all that coming up. Budgeting for CSR is also becoming an issue, minimizing paper-based marketing, employee education. Then almost similar practices also being picked up a lot by Class E enterprises and other enterprises. The next slide. So we went ahead to look at what are the main gaps, which are the areas that have gaps in terms of adaptation, climate change adaptation practices. And we realized that the issues like rainwater collection, which leads to high efficiency, there's limited adoption, with only 32% of the surveyed enterprises could give evidence of implementing that. Then the issue of desalination, also it's not common. We saw only 15% picking that. Water recycling, again, only 23% could give evidence of effectively dealing with that. The issue of flood defense resilience, again, a limited adoption of up to 37%. Then the area of tree planting, again, it's picking well. It's now at 58% implementing, and I know it could rise because the other day the ministry launched the One Tourist, One Tree initiative. So that, I'm sure, will be one of the key areas we'll be picking up. Climate risk insurance and disaster. This is, I think, is a matter of business essence. That's where you can see it's being rated quite highly. I'm having to look at that screen because I forgot my glasses, and I can't be able to read that screen. So that's why you're seeing me looking at the screen behind me all the time. The next slide. Yes. The next, from this slide, the study also included coming up with a framework for system of environmental economic accounting for our sector, so that we start now having a national system of environmental accounting, which then we can engage all players in it, have all of us educated, and capacity build in terms of reporting, in terms of environmental reporting on emission, reporting on waste production, reporting on energy use. So it was critical that as part of this study, we come up with a system of environmental accounting, which now will be mainstreamed as a national system. And from this point, I want my colleague Hesbon to come and continue with the presentation from there. Hesbon. Then after that, we look at the conclusions.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Hesbon Oyendo. I work with the Tourism Research Institute, and I'm in charge of tourism statistics. So I provided a slide, a presentation on this, so I don't know whether we can have a look at it. But before that, I just want to make this presentation in two parts. One, the story part, and then I'll be able to show you what is happening in system of economic and environmental accounting. So imagine of an island somewhere. They have discovered a very, very high-value timber. So what they've done, they started to harvest that particular timber, making very high-value furniture and exporting. So over time, that island became very wealthy. And people around the world really celebrated, saying that you guys, you are making a lot of progress. But while doing this, nobody was taking into account the trees that were being cut. So after a little time, the island started to experience a lot of problems. There were emergence of diseases, there were floods, no food. So, for us to avert this, we really need to measure what we take from the environment. And this is where the SEER comes in. So, system of environmental accounting for tourism sector is just a framework that measures how we get the natural resources from the environment, we use, and then we have the output. So this one is normally used in the national accounting, where we have various systems where we do accounts, like the national, the GDP, the income and expenditure accounts, the production accounts, the balance of payment accounts, and financial accounts. So this one is for tourism. So we can go to the next slide. So in the system of economic and environmental accounting, we have the core accounts. That is the energy account. We have GHG emission account, water account, and solid account. So these are things that we get from the environment. We use them in the sector, and then we have the output. So you can see we are having minerals like timber, water, going into the economy. And also we're having the residuals that are coming out of the economy. So it is very important for us to measure what we are taking from the environment, because if we can't measure it, we can't manage it. So that is the basis of this particular SEER account. Next slide. This is just to show you some countries that have been able to do this. We have Australia, Spain, France. And in Africa, it's only South Africa that has got that system to measure environmental resources into the economy. We also have Namibia, but for us, since 2018, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics have had to use to develop a SEER accounts on energy. Next. Next. So these are the particular frameworks where we integrate the environmental issues into the economy. Number one is the SEER CF, that is SEER Central Framework. Number two is TSA RMF, that is Tourism Satellite Account Recommended Methodological Framework. And then the last one is the SEER CF and TSA, the way I've mentioned them before. So for us to measure this, we normally have the tables, and we're just going to show you just one table for the energy flows in the tourism sector. Because for us to show you the rest of the tables will take a lot of time, but we just want to show you how we measured the amount of energy that was used in tourism. So in the rows, we have now what we get from the environment. That is the energy products, the energy residuals, and other particular outputs that we have. Then now the columns, we have the tourism sector and other sectors. So we have two tables for each account. We have the supply account and then the physical use account. So we can go on. So this is the table. You can see it has got two main columns on the top. That is tourism industries and other industries. So you can see we are having solar, wind, hydro, thermal, biomass, and all that. So for supply in the tourism industry, in our research, we only found that we have firewood, because there are some particular hotels and restaurants that generate their own energy, like the biomass. So we did all the biomass and firewood, and then we put it there. So it seems that we don't generate energy for ourselves, but the energy we use is being generated from other industries. And you can see how those particular industries, from the households, then we have accumulation, then rest of the world, which means from other sources apart from the environment. And then we have the total at the right extreme. Then next. So from those particular supply that we got, this is how they've been used in the accommodation, food and beverage, travel agencies and reservations, and other tourism industries. So you can see we used, for accommodation, In electricity, we used 771.51 in a unit called terajoules. So a terajoule is 1 trillion joules. So to put it in perspective is that 1 trillion terajoule, 1 trillion joule is like maybe burning 25,000 liters of petrol or powering about 30,000 households. So you can imagine that amount that has been used in the tourism sector. It is so huge in terms of electricity. Then we have motor spirit, petroleum. We have aviation, jet fuel, kerosene, and all that. So this is how we used, then the fuel consumption, and then we have now the total at the right extreme. Next. So these were the results. So we had 6,002, 857,000.41 terajoules sourced from environment as natural energy inputs, and 562,954.40 terajoules as biomass. So you can just imagine what tourism sector extracted from the environment. And this is why we are talking about sustainability. This amount is huge. You can also see 25,963 TJs imported from the rest of the world, which means from other sectors. Light diesel was that, and motor spirit petroleum was that. And this one, it gives you the total energy supply as 1,237,384 terajoules. So if you convert this one into joules, there are millions and millions of joules. This is what the tourism industry is taking from the sector. And therefore, we need to actually track this so that we can be able to enhance sustainability. The graph is also showing us hydro was 2%, thermal, then biomass 93%. And we can also see the one in the pie chart. In the bar graph, electricity was 4%, coal and coke, petroleum, jet fuel, light diesel, LPG, and others. Next. So this just about is the pie chart of the same information, just for clarity to show us what the industry absorbed. And this is 2022 data. This one is just showing us the tourism share of intermediate energy products consumption. The intermediate energy consumption means that these are sources that are not used in finality. They can also be used to do what? To produce other forms of energy. So for electricity, you can see in both accommodation for visitors and F&B, it was the highest, followed by charcoal and wood fuel. So we know very well we have now two energy sources that we have that uses a lot of the joules for the tourism sector. And therefore, it will be very important for us to always track and see how we are able to implement sustainability issues in the sector. Then next. This just again, the pie chart of the same information there in the previous slide. This one is also talking about the intermediate energy products used by the tourism industries. The same, electricity, petrol, diesel, and total intermediate consumption was 7,357. This means these are intermediate. They are not final. They can also now be used to produce other sources of energy. That's why we are saying the intermediate is not the final. Next. So after looking all those particular issues to do with the energy flows, natural resources flowing to the sector, we came up with the issues that we are looking in the research. We were looking at the best practices in energy use, in water use, water treatment, recycling systems, green buildings, and all that you can be able to see. Then now we have the incentives that we proposed, and then we gave also the examples from other countries, the countries that are doing, who are trying to implement sustainability issues in the sector. So I think we are going to share this. I need not to read all of it. You are going to get. So in conclusion, The study highlighted significant gaps in climate change among the tourism enterprises. Again, the best practices for advancing sustainable tourism were also identified, emphasizing the need for further adoption across all the enterprises. Then we also need to have proactive measures. We really need not to wait for the government or entities to come and actually start to implement for us. Then we also say that we also need targeted interventions, like the ones that were presented by Emboo enterprises. We need also collaboration opportunities, incentives for sustainability. We also need, from this point, to have a sustained SEER framework effort so that we are able to track what we use from the national natural environment. Then finally, we need to do continuous sensitization and capacity building to enhance sustainability in our sector. Next. So our call to action are 6 thronged. That is just to strengthen the policy that the previous speakers talked about, promote community-led adoption. This was also discussed. Mobilize global financing, foster public-private partnerships, scale up research and innovation in the sector, and finally, enhance awareness and advocacy. Then I think that's the end of that SEER presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hezbon. So just to conclude, that was the findings we wanted to present. As I said, we'll soon be sharing the detailed document. We'll also share this presentation so that then you can be able, I'm sure all of us as different players will plug in at different areas, at different chapters where they need to pick up their actions. Then also, very importantly, give us feedback on where we need to give more information, where we need to search more information. And I must acknowledge that this work was supported a lot by Judy Gona, STTA, and also a lot by Ecotourism Kenya. Ecotourism Kenya were actually in the committee that was managing the project management team. The CEO was there. So then that feedback will be very important once we continue disseminating this information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gitonga. Let's give him a round of appreciation. We have 2 more presentations that we'll make. So just ask for just a couple of minutes. And I'd like to invite, and this is just on 2 papers, that's potential impact of climate change on wildlife protected areas, a case study of Masai Mara National Game Park. And then the other one is on the role of the private sector sustainable environmental practices with visitor choice behavior in Narok County. So please just bear with us. We will not take long. And I'd like to invite Dr. Laban Rotich to come and do the first presentation. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes up.
Thank you very much. My names are Dr. Laban Rotich. I'm a tourism lecturer based at Muranga University of Technology. We did a study on potential impacts of climate change on protected areas, specifically wildlife. Please, let's have the slide. Yes, next slide, please. So the study basically looked at 2 issues. That is climate change and specifically the issue of extreme events and the effects of this on natural resources and specifically wildlife. So we did define climate change as statistically significant variation in the mean state of climate over an extended period of time, and we normally talk about 30-year period. We also define natural resources, basically what yesterday we were saying this is the real deal, the natural resources, the wildlife that we have. Next slide, please. Climate change is exacerbated through greenhouse gases. The previous presenter talked about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And these are the effects that we are having, and specifically on wildlife. So this study looked at erratic rainfall patterns. This country has experienced drought in the years 1984, 93, 97. We've also had issues of drought in this country. So the 2 issues or events, if you like, drought and flooding do affect wildlife. Kenya has warmed by about 1 degree between 1960 and 2003. We also have projections that by the end of the 21st century, this country will have warmed by approximately 1 to 5 degrees centigrade. Next slide, please. Rainfall and temperature changes affect wildlife population. This study looked at wildlife trends and how wildlife has been affected by these changes in temperature as well as rainfall. It has been said and said again that wildlife forms the foundation. It's the bedrock of the tourism industry. But now we have a problem. There's climate change through rainfall and temperature patterns, wanting to shake this particular bedrock. Next slide. The pictures are just about Masai Mara National Game Reserve, where the study was done. Very scenic views of Masai Mara, what we are celebrating, what we are terming as the real deal. So the problem, where is the problem? The issues that you have said. There's inadequate knowledge, inadequate understanding on this issue of climate change. And more importantly, our wildlife forms the basis of our tourism. Therefore, that brings the challenge or the problem that we have to face. Next slide. Next slide, please. So this is a conceptual framework. This study looked at the effects of climate change, specifically rainfall and temperature, on natural resources, that is wildlife, and vegetation cover, and lastly, of course, the issue of tourism sustainability. But what I'm presenting today, I'm just looking at climate change on natural resources and specifically the issue of wildlife. Next slide. The research methodology. The study area was Masai Mara National Game Reserve. The research design, explanatory. The research paradigm focused on pragmatist, focusing on the issue of what and how of the research problem. Next slide. We had 2 sets of data. We had rainfall and temperature data that we did analyze. We also looked at vegetation data that we collected from satellite images from the Regional Center for Mapping for Resources and also the United States Geological Survey, USGS. We also got wildlife population trends from the year 1977 to 2016. Next slide. We used a Mann-Kindle test to analyze rainfall and temperature data. We also used normalized difference vegetation index, that is NDVI, to look at variations in vegetation and, of course, wildlife population trends. So the next slide there, you have the variations in rainfall between 1960 to 2014, and we were able to plot that. And it was clear that these events, the changes in temperature and rainfall going to affect wildlife, like you can see that particular graph. Next slide. This is the temperature graph where we did plot the variations in temperature between 1960 to 2014. And we can clearly see the variation from high to low to average. Next slide. These are the wildlife population trends that we got between 1977 to 2016. Next slide. These are the NDVI images of Masai Mara. Of particular interest will be the graph or the NDVI image of the year 1975. Like you can see, it's very, very green, depicting that it's supporting abundant wildlife population. Next slide. Next slide. Now you can see the NDVI image of 2000. There's a lot of red indicating drought. There was extreme drought in the year 2000. And from our study, this affected wildlife population. It actually led to a decrease of wildlife population. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Therefore, this study recommends that probably we could have other studies done using other observation methods. Number 2, we call for maybe KWS to consider other attractions as opposed to wildlife, because there's a problem with wildlife, a decrease in the numbers of wildlife. And of course, the scenic landscapes, maybe they'll no longer be there because of changes in climate change. Lastly, there's projection that these extreme events of rainfall and drought, they're gonna be more extreme in the coming years. Therefore, calling for disaster management plans. The Emboo River Camp, they showed us a camp with some structures on how they are prepared to tackle flooding. Therefore, this point here, there's need for disaster management plans, infrastructure development in the advent of these extreme events of flooding and drought. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lagat. Laban, just stay here. Please just take a seat here. Allow me to invite Ms. Grace Wanjiku to take us through the role of private sector sustainable environmental practices and visitor choice behavior in Narok County. And then thereafter, if you have questions, we will take them just after this presentation. So let's give her a round of applause as she comes on the stage.
Good afternoon or evening. My name is Grace Wanjiku. The co-author is Dr. Edgar Osumbindumbi, and I'm here to present my research on role of tour operators and on sustainable environmental practices on visitor choice behavior in Narok County. Next slide. On our theme, welcome home, we need to enhance visitor choice behavior. We need to enhance on how we can promote tourism in a way that the tourists feel welcomed to our country, and also we can attract them. And in this generation we are living in, our visitors are really sustainable, sensitive to the kind of experiences they get in this destination. Considering that tourism is bringing a lot of revenue to this country and also employing a lot of people in this country, we need to ensure that we are able to enhance this visitor choice behavior by incorporating sustainable practices. And environmental practices, we need to incorporate tour operators. They are the ones who are able to interact with the tourists more, and actually they are the first people who have first contact with these tourists. So next. The major issue is that we are seeing that we have Narok County, specifically Masai Mara National Reserve, which is actually one of the leading tourism destinations we have in this country. Attractions in this country, but we have problems of overdevelopment, we have littering, we have also poor level of sanitation, and also what Emboo River Camp had shared here of a flooding. So for us to ensure that we are able to cope with these challenges is that we need to incorporate the tour operators and see, can they influence the visitor choice behavior? Can we be able to enhance these visitors to come to our country and they feel welcomed because they are looking for unique experiences? And you can see Vision 2030 entails supporting sustainable tourism, but does not give us clear guidelines on how we can do about it. Next slide, please. So the main objective was really to see on how we can look at the role of the tour operators and how it can really enhance visitor choice behavior. And also we looked at the theoretical framework of the tour operators that are supposed to use the resources that they have to enhance sustainable tourism development, as well as also look at the theory of planned behavior. Before tourists visit this country, they need to look at, first of all, are the experiences unique and what do they think about this country? And this is promoted using, this is promoted by actually incorporating the tour operators. Next slide. So under the conceptual framework, you can see some of the environmental practices, which is both based environmental, economic, and socio-cultural. And actually, this will lead to revisit, recommendation, and customer satisfaction. Next slide. Next slide. Next. Next. So from the findings, you could see that when the tour operators are incorporating these sustainable environmental practices, it is able to enhance visitor choice behavior. And even as much as they are applying these sustainable environmental practices, we are promoting African culture and natural heritage. We are promoting a way that in this country we are able to be sustainable. And you can see that some of these environmental practices that have been mentioned here by, for instance, we have Emboo River Camp. They were saying they are using electrical vehicles. They are using biogas. They are also using solar, they're actually solar powered. So you see all these things are really promoting sustainability, as well as also the customers are able to feel welcome to come to this country. You can find that the tourists are more well attracted to the country, which is Kenya as a destination. Next. So as we go to the conclusion, what we are saying is that the tour operators, they have the ability to sway the visitor coming to this country. They are able to sway the visitor choice behavior. Also, as we are saying that under the theme of MKT Expo, we are promoting Africa cultural and natural heritage. We are promoting this natural heritage by incorporating sustainable environmental practices, and as well as also welcoming these clients who are really sensitive to the environmental sustainability practices being practiced in these destinations. And we can go to the next slide, recommendations. So we recommend that we need more collaboration. We can't talk about we want to promote sustainable environmental practices to curb climate change, global warming, and environmental degradation, and forget the role of the tour operators. We say that the tour operators, these are the major players in this industry. If we don't have the tour operators, there is no tourism in this country. If we don't have the tour operators, we'll find that the hoteliers, they will not find tourists. So we need to collaborate with the tour operators, as well as also sensitize the visitor on more of what are these sustainable environmental practices. Because sometimes we assume they are not really interested, but they really know much, and they are really interested in taking care of the environment as they consume the tourism experiences in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for her. Please take a seat. We will just invite like a couple of questions. Let's take 4 questions if there are any. So we'll take one from here, another one. Okay. And a second one from there.
Thank you very much for your presentations. My first concern goes to Daktari on your conceptual framework. I don't know whether it can be displayed so that we see what's... Okay, what I saw in your conceptual framework is that it was not communicating, because a conceptual framework basically is a cause effect. And then I saw you put a moderating variable, which was talking to the animals? But that is not it, because a moderating variable is a variable that either enhances the independent or dependent variables to go either forward. It either strengthens or dilutes it. So I think you should be clear on your conceptual framework. Then, a young lady, thank you for good work. Your problem statement, there's a gap, especially where you mentioned the National Tourism Blueprint. It was not complete, though your study is good. Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, so mine is not a question, it's just a statement. So I've listened through all the representations. Actually, I wanted to make this statement for the first group, but I was very busy. You guys have talked about the climate. It's about climate, right? So we encountered very crazy rainfall. But no one has talked about drainage, because drainage system in Kenya is very bad. So if you guys can tell the others and to incorporate drainage in everything that you do will be best, so that we can curb the flooding of national parks and other resorts.
Thank you. I don't think there's any other questions, so I think there's one?
Thank you very much. Hello? Mnanisikia? Hello? Okay, thank you. My question is not going to the group, the panel that is in front of us, but it was a general question that should be a challenge to all of us. There's a group that was presenting talking more to do with sustainability. And something came into my mind. And I think it is something that should be our challenge for all of us, not only today, but moving forward. Remember, they told us at the beginning that at the end of the day, we need to show that we've moved from where we are to the next level. Sustainability is the issue. A lot is being done by various organizations to try to make sustainability work. But the big question that I'm asking here, who are all these efforts targeted? Is it the sustainable heroes or is it the consumer? Who is the visitor? Definitely it is the visitor. But is the visitor aware of the efforts you are making? And is it making any informed opinion in his choice of where to partake of his experience? There is a likelihood that it is not the case. I hope we are agreeing over that. Now, I wanted to liken this to something, and sorry, I'll use a hypothesis. Many years back, the condom was introduced on the global market. Definitely, nobody thought about using it, kwa sababu ilikuwa inapoteza utamu. My hypothesis is this: there is a likelihood that somebody somewhere sat and decided to inject something in us in the name of HIV and AIDS, so that we all see the need of using a condom. What is this we can do to make the consumer see the need of sustainable efforts in improving our environment and our operations? Thank you.
Can I comment on that?
Please continue.
Thank you so much. That is really good insight. What can we do so that this visitor feel sensitized about protecting the environment? I think what we would really do is kind of provide experiences that are attractive. And for us to provide experiences that are attractive, that cannot happen if we don't incorporate sustainable environmental practices, where we find there's off-road driving. Off-road driving, it causes wear and tear on the natural habitat, which is not attractive. So the more we enhance awareness on how they are related, the unique experiences, they are related to the sustainable environmental practices. They go hand in hand because tourism is dependent on the environment. So if the environment is degraded, then there is no experiences. So we'll find people are going to other countries which are more unique and actually which are more attractive. And when talking about attractive, we're talking about the kind of habitat that we have in these destinations. So the more we provide sensitization that the unique experiences are based on incorporating the sustainable environmental practices, whereby we'll find the wildlife animals, at least they are not endangered, they are not, their habitats are not destroyed. I think it's the way to go, because at the end of it all, apart from us working 24/7 all the time, we need to relax. and you can't afford to go and relax to go to a destination that probably is almost the same where you come from. We are escaping from the urban areas. We want to go to the natural areas where we can find relaxation. Thank you.
If I can comment on the question the person from TRI asked about the conceptual framework. You talked about the dependent variable, moderating variable, and dependent variable not communicating. I don't know what you mean by not communicating. From my end, where I come from, we talk about a direct relationship or an indirect relationship. Now you have climate change manifested through rainfall and temperature changes. From there, you talk about the issue of flooding and drought. Then you have natural resources. Yesterday, we were talking about Kenya is the real deal. Talk about the big five. These are natural resources that we are saying the variations in rainfall, temperature affects our life. Then, of course, the issue of sustainability, where you have economic, social sustainability, like we've been told by the other panelists. So that is my take on that. I hope I've answered your question. Then there was a question about the different stakeholders doing different things. I agree with the other panelists, emphasizing that there is need for a coordinated approach, working together and moving away from competition. So we need to work together. And I don't know what the answer could be. How do we work together? Who brings the government, the academia, the private sector? Which is this approach? Which is this vehicle? Which is this tool that we are going to put them together and work together? And of course, I know that all these people, we have different interests. The government has its own interest. Sometimes the interest could be, so there is need for coordination among the different players because, of course, we do play different roles. Thank you.
Let's just take one last question and then we close the session.
Thank you so much. I was just wanted to add on what we can do to make our tourists know that we are also working on sustainability. There's this, the rule where you cannot enter the park with a plastic bottle. We can do stuff like that because if I'm there and you're telling me, you cannot enter if you're not having carry your own bottle thing, or if you're having a plastic bottle, we can also stop being consumers. Because as long as there's someone consuming a product, there will always be someone producing it. Yeah, as long as you're there drinking a water from a plastic water bottle, you will get it. There's someone who wants that money from you. So we can start by doing things like that and enforcing them. Because once it was enforced, no one is actually doing that. Yeah, we can enforce even to those lodges or camps that are in protected areas like Mdamara and Savo. You don't even give them time and tell them, in these years you start implementing solars, we start protecting the environment. And once you enforce something and you're really serious about it, then people start taking action. So maybe the Kenya Tourism Board, the Ecotourism, all those organizations that are there to promote sustainability can start, enforcing such things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give them all a round of applause. And at this stage, I'd like to call upon my colleague, Doreen, to come in front, and also TRI to come and receive a gift of appreciation. So please, TRI. So let's just move in front. Okay, let's take a group photo. And as we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's session. A very interesting session where we covered a couple of topics. I believe they have been useful and they have given us insights into the trends and opportunities that exist for improving the tourism industry to make it thrive. At this juncture, I'd like to say thank you very much from the Kenya Tourism Board and to thank you for participating. We wish you a good evening today, and we hope that you'll turn up again tomorrow, because tomorrow we also have presentations with leading players in the tourism industry. At this juncture, I'd like to say thank you very much, and we appreciate your support. Have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.